Are you gonna speak standing up?
Yeah, I gotta.
You gonna walk?
Yeah, I fidget. I fidget with my feet.
Can you talk without your hands?
No, I can't. My grandma tried to get me to
Could
do
you
that.
use your feet and do it? Like, have you ever tried that? Just talk with your feet?
No.
Talk with your feet, is that what you said?
My grandma used to hold my hands. And she says, I bet if I held your hands like this, you couldn't say a word. I was like, no. And it's even my husband.
Bad.
Well, yeah.
You're,
Probably a spam.
Yeah.
They've been getting
YouTube. It's crazy.
I don't know where to start.
There, mine's getting on that.
Okay, if you're not going to sit there, we'll move it back. Okay.
Don't do blood. Not that much blood.
Would you pray for me?
I will. Father, sweet Jesus, Holy Spirit, thank you so much. Just thank you for your presence. Thank you that we're present with you. Just thank you for this peace that is just filling everybody in this room. You're touching everyone's heart with your fatherly love. Calming all of us. It's beautiful. Thank you for each one of us here. Thank you for this family. Every person in here is important. We just love you. We love being able to come and just commune with you and sit with you and talk with you and rejoice with our brothers and sisters and cry with our brothers and sisters. Encourage one another. Lift each other up. Hold each other. This is beautiful. Thank you for Julie. Thank you for bringing her safely home. We missed her. Thank you for the stories, the testimonies, the beautiful times that she had with you and what she saw. Thank you for giving her the words to speak out what's on your heart, to share with us. We just love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
I'm going to start by saying that actually part of this trip was frustrating because, you know, she would have, the leader, Becky, would have in our little schedule prayer and worship, which meant we'd sing one chorus. You know, like, oh, this isn't worship. When we did our introductions, we had to write stuff about ourselves, and I said, worship is my love language. And she's like, I love that. I'm like, oh, you don't understand. You can't tell me you love that and then only sing a chorus of one song and let that be worship. So I had to, like, keep the worship going in my head all the time. It was a very interesting trip, to say the least. I'm very thankful. I was telling him earlier that I am where I am now, because if I would have tried to have done this a few years ago, sorry, I'll try to keep this microphone. I wouldn't have made it through it because I didn't build bonds with people. And there was a time when I would have felt rejection in that. But then there's that realization now, they're not my people. My people don't take things at a light level. My people go deep. And I'm not saying that these people didn't. And I'm not bad-mouthing anybody. I'm explaining me. So I couldn't build the relationship with people, which kind of hurt me, but I'm okay with it because I understand. Whereas before I would have been very injured by it. And because my people are different, and I am different, and it's okay. I kept two things in my ear specifically the whole time. A word from Carolyn about how I was going to change the atmosphere, and this trip wasn't going to look like how I thought it was going to look. And then Daniel's word about governmental authority, because as I kept these things going in my mind the whole time, it kept me steady, and it kept me focused on what I was sent to do. We went to safe houses, and we heard testimonies from women who were from other countries and had been kidnapped and brought to Thailand. One just adorable young woman. One part of her story was she was locked in a room for 8 months. And the only time she ever saw anybody was when they came to her for sex. For 8 months. And that's just that time period. And that just struck me. She sat at my table at the banquet, and she had such joy, and we danced, and we had so much fun, and she laughed at me because green curry is very hot. And she thought that was really funny. But the Lord brought them out of this and brought them to different places. And so that was one house. And I met Mama Gwen, who swore she would never go to Thailand for any reason whatsoever, and there she is living there now. And she spoke words over me, just weeping. And she's like, I know you. I see Jesus in you. And she's telling me all this stuff, and I'm supposed to be loving on these women, and she is just loving on me out from the middle of nowhere, and I'm just crying. And that was amazing. And I'm sorry, my thoughts are this whole little, I haven't written it all down yet. It's hard to stay awake long enough to write stuff down this week. We went to another safe house, and this one was a coffee shop where they teach people, men, boys, to be baristas because they used to be lady boys. So some of the backstory of Thailand, which I didn't know any of this, I went in so blindly. Thailand's culture is the daughters take care of the family. However, they're not educated. That's why the sex trade is so prevalent, because it's the only way they can make money. And so these young women don't have choices because they're not educated, they're not taught anything. But then there's the boys. The families where they only have sons and they don't have daughters, they will make one of the boys be a lady boy. One was as young as 6 months when the mother decided, this is my daughter. So it's not that they're going into the sex trade because they're homosexual. It's because they're forced. And so one of the houses, this coffee shop, worked with the lady boys. And she said they had a group of good little Baptist boys come one time. Just redneck as could be. You know, they all wore their cowboy boots and their flannel shirts. Not really knowing what they were getting into. However, they come in and they're building and they're doing all this physical labor, but they loved on a young man named Jojo. And everywhere that they went, they would invite Jojo. So here these guys are, there's their big tough college rednecks with Jojo in his high heels and his mini skirt. And everywhere they went, they're like, come on, Jojo. And he would go with them. And they'd be all, you know, manly. And then there's JoJo in his high heels, and he wept when I left because he didn't understand, he didn't know that a man can just be your friend and not want something in return. And that's how he lived his whole life. Okay. There was another group called Night Watch, and this group goes out to the red light district once a week, every week, and gives gifts to the women on the street or the lady boys. And so we did that one week with one night with them, and it was so odd because there was such a protection for me because I wasn't really sure how I could handle it. We had my group that went onto the streets, then we had another group that went into the strip bars, and I was chosen to go onto the street. So first of all, small talk, I don't do small talk. That just, it's so painful. And then add language barrier to it, I was dying. I mean, it was, but I could look in somebody's eyes and I could hug them. And while they were giving out gifts and they were trying to have conversation with them, I would just stand behind and pray. And I didn't talk very much about my experience because I knew they wouldn't understand there. And like I said, I'm not putting anybody down. There are very few people I would feel comfortable really telling this all to, this aspect of it. Because we walked 3 miles that night and just loving. And I loved what Becky said is you look in their eyes, if you're in the United States, until it'd be awkward. But you look them in the eyes for a little too long so they know they're seen. And I know that I met the God who sees on this trip because he allowed me to see people who are never seen, who are out there all the time just wanting. We take hugs for granted, you know, but even just a, hey, how you doing? They don't get that.
Wow.
And that's their whole life. And so I met Elroy on this trip. And so Bangkok is broken into 3 main red light districts. We went to one called Soy Cowboy, and it's SOI, which is kind of like district or area. And so we even met 3 prostitutes in McDonald's. And this area is just like, wow, okay. And we met 2 sisters. We met some cousins. We met a lady boy and his mother along the street. But then we got to Soy Cowboy. And if you wouldn't have turned, you would have just walked past and not even knew that this street was there. But you go down, and there's the strip joints and the sex clubs on both sides of the street, all the way down. There were over 40 of them. And it was so funny because, like I said, I was numb to it all. I mean, I'm looking at all these women who are wearing bikinis or less, but I didn't see them that way. It's like you don't look at that part of them. You look them in the eye. And this one woman talked the whole trip. And Marcia was like, oh, she was like nervous, Chad. I'm like, no, the woman talked the whole time. My insides were just like, ooh. And this one time she couldn't talk. She had nothing because she was so overwhelmed by what was going on around her. Because you've got this one over here, and all the women are dressed alike. This one over here, all the women are dressed alike. This one over here, all the boys are dressed alike. And so she is just overwhelmed and freaked out, and she was quiet. It was glorious. And but me, I'm still just there. And finally, I realized. I mean, I didn't even realize what I was doing. I was just praying the whole time, and I had this whole dialogue with God the whole time. And then this one woman, Kay, grabs a hold of me and goes, "Come on." So we head into one of the bars. And so we go in, and there's the poles, and there's the women, and there's the bartenders, and there's the owner standing back. And all of a sudden, it just hits me. I got a Joe Hoppy, whoo! And of course, that's what we call it in our house. I don't know if anybody else calls it that. It was that realization. Why am I here? What am I doing? What am I called to do? And then I'm in this strip club touching everything. So you know it was of God, because I'm just like, because afterwards I was like, oh, where's a hand sanitizer? I touched everything in this bar. But I'm walking.
That's a Joe Hoppy thing.
Yeah.
That's the rule. Does anybody say amen?
Amen.
Can't get his fingers dirty.
Oh, I think my fingers got dirty that night. But I'm walking through, and so I'm saying one thing. I'm doing the whole the whole time, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I am a walking ambassador of Christ Jesus. I am the member of the kingdom with power and authority everywhere I go. Every step I take, the kingdom comes. And every step I take is holy ground because I've got Jesus living in me. So everywhere I go, he's already there. And I'm just, all of a sudden, I can't really describe it. But it was like, I got bigger. Not this way. Thank you, Jesus. And I'm just walking, and I'm touching everything. This belongs to Jesus. This belongs to Jesus. That girl up there belongs to God. This person here belongs to God. And I'm just claiming everything. And I'm going against everything in this place. I'm like, and I am not coming against principalities. I am not called to do that. I am not stupid. That's up to God. That's up to Jesus. I am not doing that. I am not causing problems where I'm not supposed to be, but I'm taking the governmental authority that I am called to do.
Yeah.
I am the ambassador of hope. And I'm bringing hope and cleanliness and God into this place because he wasn't allowed, but they let me in.
Right.
And that was their mistake. And so I was just claiming everything I was touching. It's God's, it's God's, it's God's, it's God's, it's God's, it's God's. And I walk out of there, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go back now, I'm done. I'm done touching stuff. I'm done smelling things. I'm done seeing rats in the gutter. I'm done. And it was hot and sweaty. So then we left. And it was that realization, that one time period was why I was gone from my family for 10 days. It was that one claiming. And I don't know why that place was more important than the other places, but it was there. And it started there. Because when Carolyn sat in here and told me that I'd be a changer of atmosphere, I pictured Dr. Strange. It was fabulous, you know. I'm just like, you know, shifting and moving and doing all this. And if you haven't seen it, you can just see it because it's really cool. So we went to another safe house the next day. And this one was run by the woman who led our outreach the night before. And it was just really cool to come back and visit with her and she's been doing this for years and married an American man. I'm hoping y'all are going to meet a woman named Danny. We're not supposed to be keeping tabs in contact with the people that we met over there. However, I'm a rule follower, but sometimes rules have to be broken. So she's been living in Thailand for 17 years, and she's gone through a lot because she is an overweight black woman living in Thailand. And so those two things make her an outcast to normal Thais. However, Evansville is right in between where she's from and where her family lives. So she's been coming back in April for a wedding, so she's going to be staying down here. So I don't know what day of the week that'll be. We'll just keep praying it's a Friday night so she can come be a group. So
What does she do there? Is she part of the setting people free, or what is she doing?
she is part of her, one more time, her parents run one of the ministries called The Well, where they don't set people free, but they work with those who have been set free. A lot of times the women come out and they come from an outreach situation where they've talked to someone, and that's when they come out and go, yes, I do want out. I do want help. And so I tell you what, I was highly impressed. I've already told my husband he's coming with me the next time, because I'm thinking Thailand ministries, not really set up. No, these people are working with the UN. Because there's a lot of different things. Because we're talking about trafficking from other countries, the UN gets involved.
So were there a lot of women there that were not Taiwanese, you're saying?
Yes.
They had been brought in from
A lot of them are from Nepal and India. There was a few other different places. They will go and tell them they're going to get modeling jobs or working as a secretary, train you, will get a job as a secretary. And then the issue is, okay, well, you don't want to work for us anymore? Fine, you owe us 3,000 bahts for the travel. It's going to be a lot more than 3,000, but a lot of money that they can't make money any other way. So they're still stuck there.
So what happens when the girls say, we want out of the industry, and they take them into the safe houses? So then when they get healed, what changes where they can start making money? How do they, there's no jobs there for them?
All of the safe houses have training. And
so there are places for employment outside the sex industry, and you could get some kind of a job.
As long as you have training, yes. And so that's one thing that's very important to Becky. She won't work with anyone unless there's a solution. And so, like, they might learn sewing, how to make jewelry, and just some basic training to do something to be able to get a job. We had a banquet for them. They look forward to this for 2 years. Like, as soon as that one is over, they're already looking forward to the 2 years.
So it's every
away.
2 years they have this?
Yes, every 2 years. I wrote this post about bubbles, because I can't really explain to you what the bubbles did to me. You've got women whose childhood were stolen from them. And so something like bubbles is a big thing. They play kid-like games because they never got to be kids, and they really enjoy them. And so you sit them at a table, they get to get dressed up, they're fed wonderful meal, and they're taken care of the whole time. They're loved on. And they get to do silly things like blow bubbles and dance. And they played this game where we had these animal masks, and they had to race down this aisle acting something like this animal. And they had an absolute blast. And this year was something special. There was this Thai artist, musician, They call him the white guy who speaks Thai. He was actually brought up in Thailand. And he's this famous singer. What the girls didn't know is that he's a Christian. And one of the women from one of the safe houses was freaking out because she didn't know he was famous. She's like, I go to his wife's Bible study. I go to his house every week. And so he gets up there and the girls start flipping out. I mean, they were so excited. And they were dancing and singing along. They knew exactly who he was. They knew all the songs. And then when he finished his concert, he sang worship music. And brought that bridge in that you can be a Christian and still have fun. So this was a Thursday night. We went on our outreach on Tuesday night. And one of the women that we had talked to in the street came. She sat at one of the other women's tables, so I didn't get a chance to see her. Now she went to work again right afterwards. But she was there. She got to be loved on. She got to be seen. And she got to hear some more about Jesus. Other than that, there was a lot of really good food. And okay, there were toilets, no squatty potties the whole time, so I am thanking Jesus for that. I can't even. So, what was interesting then, as I came home, I texted something to Darwin, and he didn't respond. He just laughed at me tonight.
I wasn't laughing at you.
Okay.
With you.
I wasn't laughing at that point. Just saying. So, what happened the first 3 nights after I got home? So this is another part of the story that I can only tell certain people. I would wake up in the middle of the night. The first 2 nights. I think it was 3 nights altogether. Is that right, Jamie? My days are so messed up still. Okay. So I didn't tell him about the first 2 nights, but I would wake up with this. I was back in Bangkok. And it was so funny because it was the exact same thing. I was in this street and it was after dark. And I didn't see people. I just got this impression that I was looking up and all I could see were buildings and these neon red lights that were running along the building. So that happened 2 different nights. I'd wake up and have to tell myself, I'm home. I'm not in Bangkok. However, the 3rd night, I woke up from that. And it was so strong. I had to go, I am not in Thailand. I am in America. I am not in Bangkok. I am in Evansville. I am in my home. I am in my own bed. I'm lying next to my husband. And I still was so discombobulated. I got up and went to the bathroom just to try to get myself away from it because I swear I was still in Bangkok. And I hadn't talked to Jamie about it. I hadn't talked to the kids about it. And that morning, I was taking Will to school. And he goes, it sounds like God's been taking you back to Bangkok because you weren't done yet. Or he's sending your spirit man back to Bangkok so you can finish stuff. And I'm like,
Will.
Yeah.
Out of the mouths of
There you
babes.
go.
and in all honesty, I hadn't even thought about it. And I'm like, that makes sense. And that's when I sat down and talked to Jamie about it. And so he's like, okay, governmental authority. So he's Googling buildings of the government in Bangkok. And I'm like, no, that's not it. And all of a sudden I'm like, it was Soy Cowboy. So for the 3 nights after I got back, the Lord was taking me back to that street. And I was finishing what I had been doing. And so that night when I went to bed, I was like, God, if you're taking me back there to finish what needs to be done, I'm there. I will do whatever you tell me. And I haven't gone back the last 2 nights that I know of. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
It's not finished yet.
That's my story as of now. All right, do you have any comments, any questions? Because usually you're the one that's like,
Yeah, I got lots of questions. I'll let somebody else ask questions.
now I'll sit.
So whenever you're out ministering to the girls, you're giving out gifts. What are you giving out?
Well, that's a story in itself.
I mean, are you feeding them? Or what
No.
exactly are you doing?
The gifts that our group set up were like mascara, it's just some kind of fun stuff that they enjoy. However, we found out the other group, the girls really got a kick out of those bags because they actually had condoms in there too. And that brought up a conversation because Becky was telling us that if the Thai police are usually kind of sketchy, and so if a woman is found with a condom on her, she can be arrested. It's a tool of the trade. And so I was like, then why were we giving out condoms in our gift bags? She's like, oh, no, what? No, we did not. I'm like, because those girls, they like the mascara, but they'd pull those condoms out of the bags and they would crack up. And she's like, I don't know, I'll have to talk to a few people about that and ask them. But mostly it was just some nice feel-good stuff. I see both sides of the gift, giving them condoms. You don't want to perpetuate what they're doing, however, you want them to be safe and to at least protect them. So I'm not in that decision as to whether that should be done or not, so I'm happy about that. No, but there was no, now when they came to the banquet, they got more. And they were actually given a little bit of money. And oh my gosh, what was it? 400 bahts, so it was 30 bahts to $1. Math.
13.33.
Yeah, so it wasn't hardly any money at all for us. However, they were so excited. Any other questions? What, Teresa?
Nothing.
Okay.
So were you able to have any conversation at all with any of them, like through an interpreter, or was it mainly just, eye contact and intercession?
There were some that knew enough English that we could talk a little bit. But I just struggled so much with that just because I don't do small talk. And we had to be so guarded as to what we asked them. You don't ask about your childhood. You don't ask you could ask like how old you are. We had safe questions and unsafe questions. Because so many things that they've been through were so painful. You didn't want to bring anything up at that point. So you could have conversations with them. I just didn't do well with it. I would rather pour another glass of water and then try to converse. I was a better server than a converser.
So whenever you were on the streets talking to the women, did you say, well, we're going to have a banquet, would you like to come? And were you able to invite them? Stuff like that?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. There was a woman there who is Thai. Well, we had 2 Thai women with us. And so they could interpret, and they were doing the inviting because they were used to doing it and spending all their time out there. And they knew a lot of the women too. I can say that I have been to a hotel that is run by the Russian mob.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I get some points for that one.
So when the women come out and you help them get mentally stable and the gospel, do you then take them back to where they came from, where they got kidnapped from, back to their villages? I mean,
That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's
Because
what
their families wondering what happened to them.
Yeah. A lot of times they do. Tanzania is another one, and Ghana are the 2 big places right now. sorry, brain fart. They do work on that. That's why they work with the UN, because since they've crossed countries' borders, they can bring the UN into it, and so the UN can pay them to go over for their trip back, and all the proper paperwork.
Well, then do their families accept them back when they get out?
Yeah, because they don't tell them what they've been doing.
Oh, okay.
It is a culture of shame and honor, and everybody knows what's going on, but nobody talks about it because that would be shameful. Everybody knows. You know, it's the elephant in the room.
So what is being done to stop the guys that are going out, like saying, here's what's happening when they're interviewing you for a secretarial job? How are they stopping the transporters? I mean, you're in one industry where you're trying to set them free, but what's being stopped to get, like the drug traffickers? Where are you going to get the kingpin? How are you getting? What are their plan to get the guys that are behind the movement of the kids?
That I don't know, and I don't know if they're really doing very much. They have a new king, which is part of the problem. The old king was working on trying to solve this problem. However, the new king wants to make the brothels legal. So as of right now, the brothels are officially illegal, but nobody does anything about it.
Wow.
So this new king, I guess they're having some difficulty with him. So as long as he is in power, his sister would be really good at it, and would be taking care of this stuff and making and cracking down on it. Is what I mean to say. But in their culture, the woman cannot be in charge. So as long as he's in charge, there won't be any solving the problem.
I have another question. Nobody else is asking any. Why is it so weird for you to travel back in the spirit and be doing stuff like that? That should be normal for you. Did you not originally recognize for 3 days that you were in the spirit realm, still doing what God had called you to do?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You just thought you were having weird dreams.
Yeah.
But they're too real to be a dream. They're even when you're awake, it's like it's part of you still engaged.
And it was the fact that it was the exact same place. And it was the exact same thing. It was just weird. I'm gonna just say it was jet lag, so I didn't recognize it. So here's another aspect of their culture. I don't know if they really do anything with the regular women. However, they also advertise ugly girls. And if you are advertised as an ugly girl, it doesn't matter if you come back or not. You're given free reign to do whatever you want with her. So that's another.
So they kill them or.
They can charge more for virgins. So, I'm sorry, I have taught sex ed to junior high boys, so these things don't bother me to talk about it. If it bothers you, you just kind of have to la 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 la. So, they actually will give girls episiotomies so that she will bleed every time.
Wow.
There was one girl, after the 9th time, she went into a coma. Because they could charge so much more for virgins. And so they don't care. They would just keep doing it.
What's episiotomy?
When a woman has a baby, a lot of times she gets torn, and so they'll stitch her up,
Yeah.
and that's what they'll do. They will stitch a girl up so that she's smaller and she'll bleed.
Oh, okay.
I said I figured that. It's bad. as you minister outside and do those things, and then you come back here, what does he want you to do here? Now with what you find there.
I'm working on that because I made a connection. There is a woman in Michigan who runs a ministry called Warning Lights. And I think that was another one of the main reasons why I went, was to hook up with her, because she has developed a curriculum for kids, teens, and college-age students on warning signs of human trafficking. What's actually so popular right now is girls, teenagers don't want to work, but they want that expensive product purse. So they'll sell other girls. They'll have parties, they'll have sleepovers, and so these other girls think they're coming to their house to be friends or whatever, but they'll actually have men come in, and they will sell them. And so she teaches teenagers how to look for signs and how to narc on those who are involved, what to do when these situations come up. And she uses real words, and so she's allowed in public schools, but not allowed in churches too much, or private schools. And someone tried to get her into a very large church, a mega church up in Grand Rapids, and the pastor was like, no, we can't do that. Within 6 months, they had 2 girls taken from their church. No. And so if they would have had that knowledge, it might have protected the girls. So Jen was like, now you need to be listening. Now will you listen? Now will you let me in? She also goes into strip joints every week. They know her. I don't know how things are run here, but in Michigan, being a stripper in a bar is a 1099 position. So you're a contractor, and you don't get paid by the bar. You actually pay them to let you come in there. And so when she goes into the bars to love on the women, they all just get down. They get off the stage, and they come and sit with her. And they talk and laugh and have a good time. So I don't know how all this is going to look, but I know that was one relationship that was built.
Right. There's a lot of healing that needs to be taking place all around the country from people who are hiding sexual abuse in America even.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not a lot of people that like to minister to people who have been sexually broken, and I've seen it. So, maybe that's something that God wants to shift you into. I don't know. I mean, it's a possibility. That's what He's teaching you with.
Because I obviously don't mind talking about it.
So how was the gospel presented to them? Was it presented different than, say, how you would share the gospel over here in the West? Was it, how did they have a particular method that they like to use?
No, I think for everybody it was just different. Mostly it was just a God loves you, just starting out with that. Or starting out with getting free, like from actual bondage.
Mm-hmm.
And then presenting them with the gospel. When one of the houses had an internship, and you would go in, and you may not know Jesus when you start, but they do devotions every day, and you'd have to journal every day, and it was just this gentle introduction.
Mm-hmm.
However, on the other end, there's a 16-year-old girl. As soon as they introduced Jesus to her, she just fell madly in love with him. I mean, it was just immediate. And what is so fabulous is I bought one of her pictures. And I didn't know her story when I bought it. I just knew Liv would like it. It was like really cool and all this stuff. And then they told me her story. So I saw her at the banquet. I'm like, I bought your picture. So she was so excited and took a picture of us together and all this stuff. That broke my heart because I couldn't take any pictures. You know, there's still such trauma involved with pictures because that was the only time people would take their pictures was when it was for bad things. So we weren't even allowed to even have our cameras with us. So they got lots of pictures. And I didn't get any. That made me sad. But, oh yeah, the bubbles. I didn't say. The thing is, with the bubbles, I'm standing back and I'm watching this group of women, all different ages. I mean, you had grandmothers to the youngest girl I know of was 17, and they are blowing bubbles like they're 5, and they are just loving it. And I'm just standing there watching them laugh and have so much fun. And I'm watching this one bubble float up, and I'm thinking about how beautiful it all is. And I'm thinking of it in terms of this bubble going into heaven because of the joy the Lord had to feel watching this party. It's like, God, don't ever let me see bubbles the old way again. I always want to see bubbles this way. Because of the childlike innocence that these women had because they never had a childhood. And just how beautiful that moment was. So, bubbles.
Now, when they liberate, is there a lot of cases where they can just go with them if they're out on the street, or are they having to sneak people out of places, or are they having to pay people off to let them free to get? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, most of the time the girls can go on their own. They get 2 days off a month, and that's it. So even though they're bound because they owe money, a lot of times this is the situation. They don't have time to go home to their families though because it might be a 10-hour bus ride or something. So they still, even when they have days off, they can't go home. I honestly don't know the repercussions of they owe them money. I don't know if they're afraid that the people would come back to their village and get them. I mean, I don't know all that.
I just, I didn't know if there was cases where somebody was like paying the guys off to let them go or something, I didn't know if you knew.
So do they take the money and then send it back to their families? Since you said it was the girl's job to take care of the mail, so they take that money and they don't get to keep the money they make. They're sending it to their parents.
Right. Yeah. I know some villages. Have you ever seen Nefarious by Exodus Cry?
Mm-hmm.
They talk about how the fathers will sell their daughters, and it's honorable for them to be the one whose daughter makes the most money. And so the fathers they showed this video of the fathers just sitting together playing cards while their daughters were selling themselves for prestige.
What about the people that pay the money to these women? What happens to them? Do they ever get in trouble? Never get caught? They didn't get prosecuted? Is it tourist money they bring into when do they come from other countries?
Oh yeah. Sex is what brings 80% of the tourism to Thailand. We stopped and prayed for one woman the night we were on the outreach, and she asked for prayer. She has an 18-year-old son that she was taking care of, and so we were standing around. There were maybe 6 of us standing around praying for her, and of course I don't pray with my eyes closed. I'm no better than that, and so we're all praying, and I'm looking around, making sure. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if somebody is in charge of her and her stopping and talking to us would cause problems. So I'm keeping track of what's going on. And there was this old man, and he just kept trying to poke his head in our circle. And I'm like, what are you doing? So I'm watching him because I I'm ready to swat him like a fly. And finally he realized he couldn't get his head in this circle of us and see what was going on. So he and his woman left. We got to Soy Cowboy, and there they were. It was those two and another old man, and they were sitting, we had a young woman at their table. And I'm like, well, that's why he was checking out what we were doing, because he was wanting to see what kind of a woman we had with us and what was going on. And it's funny, because those are the only people I even took notice of on that street.
So now that you've had these experiences, then now, while you're here, you have those memories, and those are really encounters. And so now you can go back and talk to each one of those people that the Lord puts on your heart, and you can give them the gospel, and you can ask them the questions, and do the inner healing to get them set free. That's exciting. Do you believe that? Because that's what can happen, and that's what will happen.
And in the spirit, there won't be a language barrier.
Exactly. And you don't have to worry about safe and unsafe questions and all that. I'm like,
Also the aspect that it was obviously nighttime here, but when I would go, it'd be nighttime. Because there's actually a 13-hour time difference in the natural. So that's one thing he and I were talking about.
That's where we do our best work. Because then when you go in the spirit realm, see, it's because God ordained you to go do it. You know that you're on assignment then, because you can't just translate to Taiwan. Okay? So when you go to sleep, and all of a sudden you open your eyes and you're in an encounter, you're like, oh, God wants me here, or you're there. They can't, and then you don't have to worry about them getting you or anything, because you just come right back, you know. So whenever you're there, don't be so nervous, like, don't try to get out too quick. Say, okay, why am I here? What's the purpose? Who am I talking to? Because they'll remember you. And they'll go, oh, I remember you. So just go up and talk to them. It's okay.
Right.
Yeah. Because then you'll meet the people later on. You go, you're the one that came. And you go, oh yeah, I went to Taiwan. No, not that time. You came like in 2000, and 22 or 21. And you're like, what? You know, oh yeah, remember right around Christmas time you went. It's Christmas when I was there. But then they'll remember that because you may not remember, but they remember that. See, because that's how that works. Earl and I both ran into those things where we've met people years and years later said, oh, I remember you when you came and did this. And I'm like, but for me, I was like, no, I had a dream. Or I was in prayer. And he goes, no, you came over to my house. And I'm like, oh, okay, well then we knew each other. So they remember those things.
They go, they were on their way to hell, and you guys reached down and pulled me out. I mean, they busted past a bunch of people, ran up to them. I gotta go talk to them. There they are. And they came and met us. And they're like, you're the one that pulled us out of the pit of hell. And they tell us what happened. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, I've never seen these people before, but okay.
Yeah. So sometimes, like you may not remember those encounters in the future, but they remember them because that's what shifted something in their life where they were on the road to healing or on the road to recovery. So pay attention to those things.
Well, that's what I thought was so weird, because I was telling Jamie I didn't see any people. I guess I was just looking up every time. What I remember is no people, just looking up and seeing the buildings and seeing those red lights. And it was those red lights that hit me. I'm like, oh, the red neon lights. That was that whole street. It's all lit up by red neon lights.
Sometimes you don't see people when you're in prayer, and God takes you somewhere here to see it. Sometimes the only thing that you're doing is keeping that area open for God to move. Many times when me and Darwin were interceding in intercessory prayer, I mean, we didn't say anything physically, but I would see him go and cut vines down and keep, every week he had to go and keep that lane open. And I was flying over the heavens, I was flying up in the heavenlies, and we would relay spiritual messages back and forth, what's going on. We'd keep that open every week, but we didn't see people half the time. So, you know, God could put you back to that place there in order for heaven to be kingdom come now over that atmosphere, over that situation, over that street, over that place. It's something being done.
And that's what we talked about is, this particular assignment wasn't about like a particular person.
Yeah.
But changing that atmosphere and keeping it open and keeping things ready.
So
Prepare the way, prepare the way. What do you say, what's the scripture say? Don't despise the day of small beginnings. Every time we go do something, we think, well, it wasn't that significant. Not what the Bible says. The Bible says it's extremely significant, doesn't it? So, don't get caught into that thought.
Well, and being able to speak into people who don't believe the same. I hate to say it, I always have to watch, feel like you have to watch how you say things. Who don't believe the same things that we do. That, you know, explaining to my roommate that praise comes from the throne room and shifts and it brings heaven to earth. And she's like, I'll have to think about that one little bit. She didn't stay in the room and talk to me too much in our free time after that. So it's all right. And then my bus buddy Bethany, you know, explaining to her one day that we may not see anything while we're here. We won't see anything about what we're doing, but someone giving me the word that we're affecting their eternals. And you know, that was, she was the one of them who went into the strip joint and saw things that she'll never forget. So, you know, being able to give her a positive aspect, you will not see things being changed, but you will change things while you're here, and you will change something for one person, which changes it for their children, which changes things for their grandchildren, and thinking about things in those terms.
Mm-hmm. What's Mike Foles' brother's name? Mike Foles. Glenn, yeah, Glenn. So I was at Mike Foles' church, and Glenn was next to me, and I looked over at Glenn, and I was like, man, there's a bunch of people behind Glenn. And I knew he didn't like know those people behind him, but they were behind him because of people that he prayed for that came to his church. And that's the reason why they were there, was because of the people that he led or that he discipled in his church, that those guys were set free because of the people that he knew. I was like, I knew that he's never going to know those people here. You know, so I was like, man, that's kind of different. I thought, so that's, you know, I remember that was like 2 months ago, I think, yeah. So yeah, that happened. Think about me. My mom prayed for me. Think about all the people that she affected by praying for me.
We prayed for
She's
you.
never gonna know. I'll get.
Me and the boys prayed for you.
Yeah, Darwin's gonna say, he's gonna say that he met me at Hutchinson or something like that. He's gonna tell some kind of story about a little race car with a fan and a battery, and I remember meeting
How do
this
you know
customer
the
that
story
was really
so well?
small like that.
Because he
you know.
remembers the transaction and he knows how
Oh,
much
yeah, I
the
do.
board number that he sold you. And he,
I went back and I got the battery book from Eveready to look up the current that the battery took. Yeah, they got produced and looked up how much the fan drew and how long it, and he told me how long it had to run, and yeah, I remembered that transaction.
Dope smoking, crazy long-haired guy in Hutchinson.
So, yeah, I mean, I knew when he told me that that was true.
Yeah, the boy said, Dad, they grabbed me, they said, that guy really, really needs Jesus. I was like, that's bad when 5-year-olds point and goes, Dad, that guy needs Jesus really bad.
So, let's just not tell him right now. Let's go pray secretly.
I said, yeah, I
Because
think
he'll
maybe we
probably-
should just prepare the way. He's gonna need a little bit extra, boys. That was funny though, because that really happened. We were doing the Pinewood Derby races. Does anybody ever do those?
Yeah.
So like the Boy Scouts did. Well, we did it at our church called the Royal Rangers did it. It's just like that. We had a track and you whittled the little car out, put the wheels on them and all that. So we did that all the time. And well, there's a dad's division. And in the dad's division of that race, you're allowed to whittle the car out, but it can be a little heavier than the kids. And you can actually have something that can help the car go faster. So guys would like tie a rubber band around the wheel axle and let it like take off fast or something like that. So I came out with an idea to get the little cooling fan off of a computer. You remember the little square ones that used to be in the backs? And I took a thermostat, an old thermostat that still had mercury. I took the mercury switch out, and when the car set level, the mercury was level. But as it started to go down the hill, it turned the mercury went to the other end, kicked the fan on, and it blew the car down with jet power. And it blew the car down with a fan in the back of it. So instead of looking like a car, it actually looked like a jet boat. I made the car look like a boat, like a raft, and we put a little army man on it, a big M60 machine gun, and it was like Rambo, or what was it, one of those where he was driving the jet boat. It was like a big fan on the back of it.
Oh, one of the
With the
airboats.
So for the boy, for the Connor, he did a 1948 Willys Jeep, and we put a hitch on the back of it and it pulled the boat in. So it was a team, you know, a dad-son team. So he pulled his car in, pulling my boat on a trailer. And we carved the trailer out and everything, and he pulled it in on the trailer. So that was the father-son combo. So every year we did a combination. It was, you know, the Roush team, as me, Connor, Aaron, and the whole team. So I went to Hutchinson to find a battery that would power that fan real hard for short bursts. And I needed a battery that would work. And then I said, that guy right there, that tall guy, he's the one to talk to. So we prayed out in the car for 15 minutes until we said, okay, who are we going to talk to get this thing working? And we went in and we met Joe, and he wasn't living for Jesus then. I still have the car. We still have the little cars and everything. And so you were the guy that helped us. And when I asked the owner's son, Tony, I said, I need a battery. And he goes, oh, did you just talk to him? And we go, yeah, that's the guy we want to talk to, that tall guy right there. So then we didn't know that he was the one that knew all those part numbers and everything. So that's, God directed us straight to him. And then he helped us figure out what battery and how much that little fan drew as far as its amps, and then what battery would do that. And then I got a couple of them so we didn't have to recharge them. I just pop a new one in. If I ran so many races, then the battery was going to get dead and we wouldn't win. But that car won.
Yeah.
So we won all the races with every car we ever built.
Do you
We never
remember
won
the next year?
undefeated.
The next year, you guys made some awesome cars, and people were taking the glue and gluing your wheels to where
Yeah,
they
trying to
wouldn't
get us
work,
not to win.
so they wouldn't win.
Yeah, and the kids would get so mad because we would be the would be Roush Racing. We would have little banners, and I'd make a Roush Racing team. And we would have like a semi truck with the little trailers. Like we would take one of their little toys, and we'd put our cars in and pull them in on the trailer like Roush Racing has arrived. We'd back the cars out and park them like this. Little flags and banners over them. That was a big deal.
That little camper park next to it.
Yeah, we
They
looked.
tried to sabotage you.
Oh yeah, so the kids would always end up crying because it would end up being Connor and Aaron racing each other to win, and somebody had to lose. And so then whoever lost was crying because their brother beat them. We weren't worried about anybody else in the whole church, but just the brothers would end up racing each other. So I made sure when they drew the brackets up, please don't put Aaron and Connor in the same bracket at the beginning, because somebody has to lose and they're going to beat each other.
Right.
So we would have to try to make it as fair as possible.
Did you use the CO2
Huh?
cartridges? Did you use the CO2 cartridge ever?
Yeah, and those,
These are fun.
we couldn't, it would build way too much if you tried to use a CO2 cartridge. And it had to be able to sit there, and then when they said go, the CO2 cartridge would be blowing off when you wouldn't ready to go.
I see.
So it had to have it where you could only, as it took off, it tripped the lever like a
I
mouse trap
gotcha.
was common. Guys would do a mouse trap, and it would, as soon as you started going, go, and it'd pull the string on the mouse trap spring,
Mhm.
it caused the car to go fast.
I mean, I still remember other sales like from 93, 94, 95,
Yeah.
when I would wait on like,
Crazy ideas.
yeah, those are the ones they gave me all the crazy ideas. And if somebody called in and they spoke a foreign language, I got all the calls. So, but you know what I can do now? A lot of times, if I'm listening to a message and somebody's got a really hard accent, it's not very hard for me to listen to somebody with a lot of an accent, and it's not very hard to listen to me, somebody that the stuff's chopped up, because as I'm working, I work and I have 4 or 5 seconds every 2 minutes where I can't hear anything because I'm, making my cables. Then I stop, that thing turns off, and I can hear again, and I've learned how to piece together what I missed by what I heard previously, and when I hear after, I can get a lot of it. So, like Earl doesn't hear very well here, but he'll hear in the spirit. So that's taught me how to
Here like that.
start getting into that. And now I'd probably to get a lot more out of it, I'd have to listen to the message probably 3 times back to back to back to get more stuff. But it's it's amazing the stuff I learned. But what's happening now is, like, Darwin's been saying something to me for a long time. It's like, I don't listen to other messages. Like, I don't read other books. He's like, are you ever going to get your own message? Are you ever going to keep on listening to all these other books? I mean, read all the other books, and I'm still doing that, but I'm actually listening to less messages now than I used to. I'm thinking more, and I'm looking stuff up more, and trying to, going to figure it out. And Laura's having some of those encounters. Like, she's getting into it, and I haven't told her about it. Just like what happened with Darwin and me. Now Laura's starting to. That's like happening to her. It's like, man, that's like happening. That's going to happen to all of us here, going back 3 days in a row. But it's not just 3 days.
You do realize that everybody here have access to that. Everybody in this room,
Yeah.
everybody that partnered with Jules going, we're partners in it. Okay, so it's as if you went. So she went in the physical, but now that door's open, anybody here can go to Taiwan anytime. Because you're partnered with it, right? So that door's now open, so we have access to Bangkok anytime. Because if you supported her financially or prayerfully, then you're just as much invested into what God's doing there as she is. Even though she was there physically, your spirit was there partnering with her even at that time. So now that door that you went through in the natural, it's open for everybody that partnered with you. They have to learn to think like that that's how you affect the world. Mm-hmm. When Jesus said, greater things than these shall you do, that's what he's meaning. Because as you go with each other, you're partnering for many, many things all simultaneously. So everybody in here that's been trying to do something, for Jesus, anybody else that's praying and partnering with that, you all have access to everything that they're doing. So that's how, when you start teaching yourself how to think like that, how to be trained like that, when you do that, that's how I have access with what Kara's doing in the spirit realm, or Jeff's doing in the spirit realm, because when he starts to tell me, I already see it all, because I have access to it just like they do, because I'm partnered with them. So if Joe tells me something, I'm already partnered with Joe. I'm already committed to Joe as a brother. So when he starts to say, oh yeah, I can fully function in that. And Joe has that with whatever I do also, because I could say, I got a word of the Lord, da da da. And he goes, and it's as if he got the word. He goes, that's so real, it's if I got it myself. That's what Earl and I have. But see, that's when Earl gets a word, he hears that as if he got it, whether I get it or he gets it. It doesn't make a difference if Earl gets it first or I get it first. It's almost like simultaneously we see the same thing, because we're partnering in the spirit. So if Earl gets it, I get it too. If I get it, he gets it
What's
too.
pretty neat about it, it's like everybody has a piece of a puzzle. And if you get it and you think and operate that way, everybody's able to put their pieces together. Then before long, I mean, it's like the full-blown manifestation of God. I really can't put human word to what happens when something happens.
See, that's what, and so we have access to everything God's doing globally, all right now also. So when we enter into worship, we're entering into worship with how many people are singing the songs we're singing. We're engaged with the body of Christ in a way greater dimension than what you realize as a spirit being.
That captured me in was it the third song that you played, The Waymaker?
Yeah.
And I started here praying for everybody here, and I'm going, oh wow. And I started feeling Chet Todd, and I started feeling like other guys that I know. I was like, this is Evansville. And I'm like, wow. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, no, I'm not just gonna stop here. I'm just gonna go. I just kept on going like a little bit more further around until the,
Eccentric circles.
Yeah.
Out.
And I was like, whoa, this is like awesome. Wow. It's like that's what we're doing. But I think Darwin came and I went to lunch with him on Wednesday, and I'm driving to work, and I got so overcome about water. It's just crazy. I'm going to work, and I had an experience about water. I'm going, wow, it's in gas, it's in solid, and it's in I knew that scientifically. And then I'm thinking about the water filter that got put in my house and how it's, like that. I'm going, well, how does that have to do anything with that? And, and I get to work, and he comes and picks me up, and Darwin's like, you know what I did at Wayne and Leslie's house the other day? I'm going,
Well,
are you kidding me?
Actually, and Wayne is the one that sent me a message about hooking up a water filter. Then he realized that he had given his water filter away, and then he said, okay, we need to research which water filter I need. So it was more than just one little aspect of it. I go, no, it's like the water filter he had is now gone. He's got a new upgrade water filter we have to get and install it. So whenever I told Joe, I was like, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, I didn't know. It's just normal stuff. I was talking to Wayne and Leslie. Joe's going, no, you don't understand. God's been speaking to me all day about water. And he's like shaking and bouncing at the time.
I mean, I wanted to pull over off the side of the road for a minute. It was like, it was just thought about water. I was going, that's like strange.
It's just water. I don't know why you're freaking out. He goes, no, we're 98% water. And I'm going, yeah, what's the big deal? He's going, no, but how the body works. And I go, yeah, but we're dealing with Wayne is like water filter. Yeah, we need to filter the water. The water's got to be the living water of God. And then he goes,
Yeah. He was talking about filters last night.
so it's pretty funny.
That's good.
And so you start to think like that, then that stuff makes sense to you, that we're being trained in a different way than just traditional ways. God's using the things like Julie's going through and, all those kinds of things. Is how God's teaching us his ways. So his ways are higher than our ways, right? So according to the word of God, so he's got to teach us his ways. So he uses the things that we're engaged in or that we're involved in, simple things like doing jobs, but he's trying to use those as a teaching moment to teach us his ways. So whether you see anything but the lights, why did you see the lights and light? Because that's what triggered your memory of where you were. That's what you remembered. That's what triggered, here's where you are, and you're walking up and down the street. This is why you were here. So, pretty fun. I saw way deeper than that. So like I saw, whenever I saw you, when you were trying to explain to me, I saw like the Wild Wild West with the cowboys. And I was like, what does that have to do with, you hadn't told me yet that the place you went to was called something cowboy. And I told Joe, I said, yeah, we was with Julie, and we were going back to like the cowboy ways, the Wild Wild West. And he's like, what? I go, yeah, it's like the cowboys, we're dealing with the cowboys, and we're going back to the foundations of when it was like a desert town. I saw like the buildings on both sides, and I saw like, we're going back to the brothels of the cowboy ways. Like when the cowboys were here, where the saloons were and all that, the houses. And I'm going, okay, so what does that have to do with where she is? He goes, yeah, but this has existed a long time. You're going back hundreds of years. You're going back to foundational things of when the town was built. It had a brothel here. It was in its foundation. And so you're going all the way back to not just the cowboy, strip joint. It's cowboy, like as if in the cowboy days. You're going back to the, you know, the 1400s. You're going back to in time to when you're walking on that. If you look at the next time you're there, look at the buildings and then see if they are all of a sudden go back from the buildings of today to the buildings of 100 years ago to the buildings of today, and you'll go, am I in the current time frame or am I before this time frame? And you'll see how it started there, and you're going back and shifting what happened that long ago, that now you're seeing the evidence of what happened then now. That was the result of something that was started a long time before you got there. This has been going on. Bangkok's famous for the prostitution trade. I mean, world famous. People go all over the, you know, they go specifically to Bangkok because you can literally get any kind of thing you want. That's, you know, that you couldn't get anywhere else, you can get it there. And so it's like world famous for that. So they, you know, like, what happened? What's the principality over that area that's been there from the beginning? That why that's there? So yeah, you could go in and set the girls free, but the thing that's above it, that's facilitating, promoting it, you know, it's world renowned.
And that was one thing that struck me when I was in that one bar, was that I had to make sure I recognized and acknowledged the fact that I was not coming up against the principality, because I was not called to do that, and I would not cause more chaos.
It felt like when she was describing that, you know, I could see it, and it felt like you were there outside of time. You know, like that's why there was no people there, because they exist in time.
And
you were just there.
When you're in the spirit, time doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You can go back forward and backward in time. The only thing that'll give you a hint is what you're looking at. If you're looking at foundational things or where you're looking at current things. Well, sometimes God will have you go back to where it's maybe just a desert. And you're like, well, but you're in the same place, on the same street. The buildings aren't built yet. That's what I saw back in the cowboy days, like when the towns were being built. I was like, what is Julie doing that has anything to do with cowboys? I didn't have any idea it was the cowboy bar. You know, it's Bangkok. I figured it had some kind of a Taiwanese name or something, not cowboy bar. Like that's what I mean, you know, when you're looking at that stuff, you're saying cowboy bar in Taiwan. What is that? They don't have cowboys there. That don't make any sense. That's why I didn't say anything to you, because I thought, oh, she's going to get a kick out of this, because the way I saw it, that he was connecting me to it was with cowboys. Well, when I saw cowboys, I'm thinking Wild Wild West, Billy J, you know, Billy the Kid and Jesse James, you know, and I'm thinking, but there wasn't any cowboys there. I didn't see the cowboys, and the town that I saw still had no people either. All I saw were the buildings, and I'm thinking cowboy, Wild Wild West, dirt roads, you know. But I saw the brothels and the fountain and how all that started. And I was like, okay, I get it. Going back to the beginning, reestablishing God's kingdom here, putting our feet on the ground. So I was like, that was pretty funny. Then hear you come out and tell me, oh, well, I was at the only bar I went in was the cowboy bar. And I'm going, should have known. I should have figured it out.
See, when Darwin told me that, I was like, man, last week I had the dream where I went back to the Wild West too, and truth and holiness like led me through like with the bramble bushes and like abandoned cities. I'm going, man, this is the Wild West.
Cowboys.
Yeah, the Cowboys. Yeah.
So you see how we were actually partnering with what Julie was doing all the way there. We just didn't realize it. You know, that's crazy.
So I was there Tuesday night, their time, which would have been Tuesday morning here. Right, yeah.
We're gonna have to get you cowboy boots and a cowboy hat.
Jamie said she's an ad, that she was an ad.
Yeah, because they're 12 hours ahead of us.
Yeah.
They'd already gone. We were back 12 hours. So you know, when you're in the daytime, we're still asleep. We're partnering with you. Isn't that funny? So see, you have to allow yourself to be open, to be trained like that, and then pay attention with what you see. Start taking it in, because there'll be clues that don't make any sense to you, but it makes sense to me, or it makes sense to Earl, or it makes sense to Joe, it makes sense to Kara, because they've got that other piece of the puzzle. They're carrying that. So when you say Calvin, okay, now I get it, and all of a sudden the pieces start to fit together. See, so it creates that. Okay, I understand what Jesus is doing. So now we can, you know, that we can be informed of what God wants to do in that. That's pretty funny. I think it's incredible that the body is learning to partner together as one person, as one body. Don't you think that that's pretty incredible? Mm-hmm. That we can all partner as if we're one single person. We're like a transformer. We all make up one body. Mm-hmm. And when one part of the body's doing it, all the other parts of the body are still, they're doing it. I think that's pretty cool. That's encouraging.
So thank you all for your partnership and your prayers.
So you already plan on going back
Yeah,
and taking
yeah,
things?
yeah. I thought about Liv, but you're supposed to be 21. However, I think with us going, I think they would allow her to go. For the most part, it's pretty not traumatic, I guess I should say. But it's a very good learning experience. I want him to go to be able to see these ministries and just how professionally they were set up. I was just really impressed because I didn't expect it. I don't know why. And the guy who went with us was supposed to be our security. He wasn't security. He was this sweet, adorable man. I'm like, no, Jamie's security. Juan's
Jamie's
security.
I'm a foot taller than most of them, I'm sure.
Yeah,
And a
it's
foot
really,
wider.
Yeah, exactly.
really hard to shop for my family over there. Those little people.
Big guy in a tie shop.
I know. I tried to find. I only found one booth in all the places that we went to. One booth that would carry clothes that my family could wear.
Like you go in every store there and it's all Wish.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's all the Wish app.
That's true. And I find something I like. I'm like, you got this. And I finally realized to go bigger size. Oh no bigger size, little size. I'm like, I'm like, no, husband, big size.
Big size.
No big size. Okay, all right. So the only store I could shop in for my family was called Mr. Big.
Wow.
Yep. Okay, you can turn it on.
Amen.